It could be said that the founder of Lawndale was a woman. For E.L. Hopper of E.L. Hopper and Son, the real estate business that developed Lawndale was Elizabeth L. Hopper. However, the actual early development of Lawndale was conducted by Elizabeth's son, Charles B. Hopper. He was educated in the grammar and high schools of Los Angeles and later attended Stanford University. His father was successful in the real estate business in the East, and Charles decided at an early age that he too wanted no other field of work. In his 1963 autobiography, Charles Hopper briefly described the early development of Lawndale. The most pressing, immediate problem was to get people out there on the Redondo Railroad to look the place over. I had got together with the line and organized excursions out to this new area, which I had just named Lawndale, after a Chicago suburb. It was March 12, 1905, when the first known classified advertisement for Lawndale appeared in the Los Angeles Times. By mid-March, after the winter rains, the open acreage would have certainly matched its namesake. On April 16, 1905, the first known display advertisement for Lawndale appeared in the Los Angeles Examiner, along with an article describing the new tract. Classified advertisements for Lawndale acreage continued to appear in the Los Angeles Times as late as September 15, 1905. It would appear that the first sale of acreage in Lawndale was not a success. For less than 1 year later, the entire tract was redrawn into individual lots. As a result of the apparent lack of sales, E.L. Hopper and Son began a second marketing campaign on February 18, 1906, with a series of display advertisements in the Los Angeles Times that touted February 25, 1906 as Lawndale's opening day. This second land sale appeared to be a success, at least according to subsequent advertisements and articles. However, it seems that the vast majority of land buyers bought speculatively, for only one of the first purchasers, John Hugo, built on his lot. Still, other buyers did begin to build homes and businesses later in 1906, thus becoming Lawndale's first settlers. In May 1906, a second subdivision named Lawndale Acres was surveyed. It was to be sold as acres and half acres on property directly east of the original subdivision. Also, an improvement was indicated on the May 1906 tract map, the installation of gas piping that was to be used for gas lighting in new homes. It wasn't until 1911 that an electric lighting system was installed in Lawndale, and not until February of 1912 that the Lawndale Congregational Church, Lawndale Mercantile Store, and a number of homes actually had electric lights. In an effort to further market Lawndale as an ideal place to raise chickens, E.L. Hopper and Son promoted the concept of the Lawndale Poultry Colony in 1906. Similar campaigns were conducted by developers in the communities of Hawthorne and Inglewood. In November of 1910, the third Lawndale subdivision, also called Lawndale Acres, was surveyed. It was property directly south of Marine Avenue, continuing on to Manhattan Beach Boulevard. By this time, Charles B. Hopper had formed the new company of Hopper, McFarland, and Duncan Incorporated to sell the new subdivision. During these early years, many settlers came and went. Very few of the residents living in Lawndale during its first decade remained by the second. Yet newcomers continued to arrive and build homes. On October 7, 1911, a column in the Inglewood News reported that indications point to the season this coming year that Lawndale has ever known since it was laid out by E.L. Hopper and Son some years ago. The present growth is due to the fact that all suburban property on the Redondo line is being rapidly subdivided and occupied by people looking for small tracts for homes, where climatic conditions are ideal and the city and sea are both at hand. The location of the town is good, it being high enough to form excellent drainage, and the streets are set with trees, which are now getting large enough to make an excellent showing. The soil is mostly a sandy loam, rich and easily worked. There are also tracts adjoining the town, which are partly the adobe soil, which is especially fine for the florist and raiser of all kinds of berries. As the new community began to take shape, early residents formed various clubs to occupy their free time. In 1912, there was the Saturday Afternoon Club, which met at residents' homes and enjoyed music, games, recitations, and refreshments. There was also the Lawndale Whist Club, which played a card game similar to bridge and awarded various prizes to winners. During the summer months, residents could enjoy a hayride on a Friday night. The participants would arrive at the home of the hostess, who often served ice cream and cake. If any crimes occurred, Lawndale had its own constable, who functioned as a deputy sheriff. Early elections were truly a rural affair. A notice in the Inglewood News dated August 31, 1912, titled "Where to Vote Next Tuesday," listed the Lawndale Precinct polling place, located in a tent at the electric train's color crossing. Lawndale's development during its early years was slow but continual. Each decade saw an increase in the number of residents. By the end of 1939, the total population had reached approximately 6,000. Still, Lawndale remained a small country town, and it wasn't until the decades following World War II that the last of its open fields and vacant lots were finally built upon. The first rail company to operate a system through what was to later become Lawndale was the Los Angeles and Redondo Electric Railway, which opened a line on November 28, 1902. It ran through the center of Lawndale on Hawthorne Blvd, eventually making a stop at the station at 147th Street. The Lawndale Water Company was formed by E.L. Hopper and Son to provide a perpetual supply of water for both domestic and irrigation purposes. The company charged a flat rate of $1.25 per month and claimed the water plant to be one of the most up-to-date and best-equipped system of its size in Southern California, and further claimed the well to have an inexhaustible flow of water. According to former city historian Helen Anderson Smith, the first residents to buy and build in the new Lawndale subdivision were the families of Mr. Rugg, Mr. Preston E. Carter, and Mr. Green. Mr. Rugg constructed the first home, which was located on Larch Avenue, just north of 147th Street. The Lawndale Congregational Church began on the evening of August 22, 1906, when the residents of Lawndale met at the home of Mr. Preston E. Carter to consider the proposition of building a church. After learning that a church was being planned, real estate developer E.L. Hopper and Son offered to donate $100 to the building fund and a lot on the northeast corner of 147th Street and Mansell Avenue on which to build. This was done with the stipulation that the church be built immediately and used as a school building until a regular school could be organized. Lawndale's second organized church was the Lawndale Church of Christ. It was started by Mrs. Sarah Jones, who conducted Bible studies in her home on 147th Street as early as 1917. The formation of the Lawndale Elementary School District resulted from a petition by G. Lovell and 8 others to create the district from a part of the Wiseburn District on October 16, 1906. The original enrollment consisted of 19 pupils, but grew to 21 by the end of 1906. The first teacher was Albert W. Stuffen, who also acted as principal and janitor. In 1907, the Lawndale Grammar School was erected on a site just north of the Congregational Church. The wooden tower of the school building contained a bell which set the official time for the community. In March of 1905, Mr. Adolph Lusinger was appointed to the Board of Trustees of the newly formed Inglewood Union High School District, later to become the Centinela Valley Union High School District. On October 20, 1924, a meeting was held that authorized the board to purchase blocks 24 and 25 of Lawndale Acres as a future school site. On April 13, 1928, school board member Mr. J.R. Wimmer of Lawndale made the motion to name the new school Adolf Lusinger High School in honor of Mr. Lusinger's 23 years of service to the district. The motion was carried unanimously. The Los Angeles County Library System was founded September 5, 1912, under the provisions of the 1911 County Free Library Law. By late 1913, Mr. Lorenzo E. Fish and Mr. Earl Young contacted the county librarian to learn the requirements for establishing a branch in Lawndale. Miss Helen L. Buss volunteered to act as the first librarian with the provision that other local girls would take turns volunteering. However, by December 1914, none of the other volunteers followed through on their agreement to serve as librarians, so the county sent Miss Buss a check for $8 for her 1 year of service. The first functioning post office in Lawndale was located in Mr. Preston Carter's grocery store. In 1906, Mr. William Enns constructed a 2-story building on the north side of 147th, just across from Mr. Carter's store. The front of the building was used as a new post office and was combined with Mr. N's hardware store. In October 1918, Miss Helen L. Buss became postmistress. Miss Buss also operated a small confectionery inside the post office building and remained postmistress until 1922. Lawndale Park, also known as West Park, was located in the center of 147th Street, just west of Hawthorne Blvd. It was designed in the shape of a diamond with the points facing the directions of a compass. This site later became the Lawndale Community Center and eventually the Lawndale Civic Center. In 1906, E.L. Hopper & Son claimed that all street work, cement works, and oiling are about completed, and the principal streets will be adorned with shade trees. This is all being done in a first-class manner. This, like all public work, is done without any expense to individual property owners. While it is true that concrete sidewalks were installed in some areas of Lawndale, such as the business district on 147th Street, it was still many years before such improvements reached the rest of the community. The first organized fire department in Lawndale was composed entirely of volunteers. Mr. Hervey L. Smith was both the organizer and first chief, and Mr. Dutton B. McLeod was the first captain of the volunteers. However, on August 20th, 1923, a petition requesting the formation of the Lawndale Fire District was transmitted to the Los Angeles Board of Supervisors. The Lawndale District was then formed on paper December 17th, 1923. As early as 1909, there was an Improvement Association holding meetings in Lawndale. Many early residents of Lawndale joined this association, which helped the community through the annual fairs it held. Another early civic group to organize was the Lawndale Live Wires. This was a group of men who formed their organization in the spring of 1924 to work for the good of the town, represent the people, look after philanthropic work, and provide a wholesome social life for the families of Lawndale. In 1926, the Lawndale Women's Club was organized by founder Mrs. Robert Hayes Wilson. In 1927, the club was federated with 13 members. The Lawndale Women's Club continues to be the oldest active club in the city. Prior to attending organized sporting events, such as those at Lusinger High School, Lawndale residents could partake of other organized spectator sports, such as boxing, baseball, and basketball. One of Lawndale's first businesses was opened in 1905 by Mr. Harvey D. Mosley and his sister Ada, who opened their real estate business in an office on a plot that Mr. Mosley's obituary described as a barley field, which later became Lawndale. By 1906, other businesses included the Lawndale Water Company, the Model Chicken Ranch, and Mr. Carter's grocery store. The Lawndale Mercantile Company was originally started by Mr. Preston E. Carter, who built his grocery store in early 1906 on the southeast corner of 147th Street and Buren Avenue. The store also served as the town's first post office. And while Mr. Carter was out making grocery deliveries, he was known to leave his store open and place the undelivered mail in a hat so that residents would be able to come in and help themselves. The Lawndale service station was the first gas station in Lawndale. It was located on the northeast corner of Hawthorne Blvd and Rosecrans Avenue. It was opened by brothers Albert and Harry Thomas, who originally came from Briley, England, a small village located on the border with Wales. The Cook Lumber Company was founded by Albert Cook in 1923. Today, the business remains in its original location. The Lawndale Fruit Market was opened by Nick and Catherine Arrico about 1927. The Arricos originally immigrated from Sicily and after arriving in California, lived in Los Angeles before eventually buying the business in Lawndale. Ryuichi and Shiono Zhao immigrated from Hiroshima, Japan, first to Hollywood, California, then eventually moving to Lawndale about 1928. The family started the market within a year of their arrival. Lawndale Market, better known as Shoes Market, was located on the northwest corner of 147th Street and Hawthorne Boulevard. It was a favorite place for children to visit after school and buy penny candy. The first Exchange State Bank of Lawndale was constructed in 1924 on the southeast corner of Hawthorne Boulevard and 147th Street. The bank opened with $50,000 in capital and was said to be the first bank in California to receive a charter for a main bank and a branch bank at the same time. For many years now, the building has served as the Lawndale Pet Hospital. By the mid-1920s, oil drilling began in Lawndale. For a time, Lawndale earned the nickname the Black Gold Village. However, by the early 1930s, most of the oil workers moved away and drilling ceased in Lawndale. There have been at least 4 newspapers published with Lawndale as part of the title prior to 1939. On May 27, 1911, the Inglewood News was quoted as saying, "The population of Lawndale is growing very rapidly. If this will keep on for any length of time, Lawndale will soon be an incorporated city." That length of time turned out to be nearly 50 years. In order to prevent the city of Hawthorne from annexing what little geographic area remained, Lawndale was finally incorporated as a city on December 28, 1959. Even by the 1930s, Lawndale was considered old enough to have a history written about it, as evidenced by these articles.